Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Wednesday, the 23rd of November. My name is Rachael Parker. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Anglican priest responsible for Dayspring Ministries, which is a collaboration of three churches, St. Thomas in Wainwright, St. Saviour's in Vermilion, and St. Mary's in Edgerton, in the beautiful Anglican Diocese of Edmonton in the province of Alberta in Canada, and I'm glad to have you here today. Now, I am wearing my clergy shirt today on purpose because I would like to talk to you a little bit about something that a lot of us, especially professionals, I find very difficult to talk about. And that is the issue of mental health. We are, as a society, really good about talking about physical health, the importance of getting healthy and getting exercise, of making sure you eat properly. And if there's something wrong with you, you go to your doctor. If you have diabetes, type 2 diabetes here, you try to watch your diet, get exercise, you take your medications, and there should be no shame in that. Although, some physical diseases do seem to carry some shame. Diabetes is one of them, especially type 2 diabetes. I find a lot of people have preconceived notions of those who are diabetic and can be very judgy about it. And that's unfortunate because when we judge others because of or for health conditions, we actually stigmatize them and we push them to such a point that maybe they hide it or refuse to ask for help or are ashamed to ask for help, even if that shame is simply not telling other people about it. As a type 2 diabetic, I have found it helpful when I tell people that I am, because then it eliminates some pressure on me, especially as a priest. Many of you might be aware that the thing is, when you go as a priest to visit someone, or there's a potluck supper in the parish or something, there's sort of an expectation that the priest will taste Mrs. McGillicuddy's famous brownies or eat a little bit of everybody's dish at a potluck, and 9 times out of 10 those dishes are going to be some kind of a carb lasagna or a pasta dish or some kind of a pie or something, all things that diabetics should probably eat in proportion. When I tell people that I am type 2 diabetic, usually it helps them to not be quite as have not quite as high expectations that I will automatically eat what they are providing me. It allows me to be able to say thank you, but I can't, and so that helps. But for a lot of people, it's difficult to say things like that, and so you're forced to negotiate social situations in which you go to like coming up on Christmas season, Thanksgiving for our American friends this week, but also that Christmas season's coming and parties and things like that, where it's it's a gift to go and find a table laden with all kinds of things that you only eat at the holiday time. But unfortunately, you really shouldn't be eating it all, and certainly not in the quantity that people put out before you. So being able to talk about things like if you have an eating disorder, or if you are a diabetic, or have heart issues and have to have low sodium diet, being able to talk about those things actually makes the world a bit easier. When people get over the whole, well, that doesn't matter, one little bite won't hurt you. People are getting better that way. However, we are not yet getting better, I think, at mental health issues. We use words like, oh, they're crazy. We throw words like that around, oh, they're a little touched up there, things like that. We don't intend to be mean, but we don't realize that how many people in our sphere of influence, the people at our workplaces, in our own families, in our neighborhoods, who are dealing with mental health stresses or stressors that actually have or have not been diagnosed, that they are dealing with for themselves. We are living in an era through the pandemic, and we aren't post-pandemic, but as we're living through this pandemic, as it continues on, and we're seeing more and more case counts up here anyway, in Alberta, we're living through a time in which mental health became highlighted because so many people ended up being isolated, and we've had to pull back from the things that we used to do, and all of a sudden everything's all about mental health. But then all of a sudden it stopped being about mental health. So it was like everybody was making homemade bread and starters, the sourdough starters and things like that. And all of a sudden that stopped. We got into the habit. We did it. It was almost a, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it was like a, hey, this is what we need to pay attention to. And then it got passé and we stopped. And yet the mental health issues that came forward in the pandemic a lot of them were already around, and the pandemic just brought them to light. And now we are still dealing with them, but we are backpedaling in our talking about them, and we're acting as if they didn't really matter, or it's not that bad, I can handle it, or, with the doctor shortages and things like that, we don't have the quick access to receiving the kinds of help we need. And most often than not, if you're a doctor or anything like mine, I get to talk about one topic when I go to my doctor. So if I'm going in to talk about my blood work and my drugs that I need because of my diabetes, there's no room to then say, doc, I'm really feeling depressed or I'm feeling anxious. I need to make another appointment for that. And guess what? If you're already feeling overwhelmed because of your physical things that brought you to the doctor, and you want to talk about your mental health, but it's going to take another doctor's appointment, and then, it's really easy to not make that doctor's appointment to talk about your mental health. Well, as some of you know, back in September, 2 months ago now, my husband was taken into the hospital with congestive heart failure, and we're dealing with it. He's doing okay. Okay is a relative term. We're learning where he is. We don't know whether his drugs are working or not yet, but he seems to have more energy. He's back at work full time. He's negotiating what it is to live with this heart that's working the way it is today. We're still praying for miracles, and we're still working on, on the assumption that he's going to keep on chugging. We're going to live our lives. However, that whole layer of congestive heart failure, a chronic disease that will never go away, guess what it does to your mental health? Now, I'm not going to speak to Rob's mental health. It's not my place to talk about how he's doing, but I can talk about mine. And I was already somewhat anxious, and anxiety is not a bad thing. Sometimes anxiety, a little bit of it, stress is a little bit of the thing that gets you up in the morning. That you need, the need to get something done, the work you have to do, the responsibilities you have, the people who are relying on you. It gets you moving. It's a motivator. But when that anxiety becomes crippling, when it becomes overwhelming, it actually does exactly the opposite, doesn't it? It's a demotivator. It stops you from being able to even think about getting up in the morning or taking care of somebody else, let alone yourself. Because quite often, for a lot of adults, we will take care of others before we will take care of ourselves. That whole thing when you're on an airplane and the flight attendant tells you before you take off, if something happens, the oxygen mask will drop from the ceiling. Put yours on before you put on your child's. They'll be okay while you put yours on. You need to take care of yourself so that you can take care of another. But our natural inclination is often to take care of somebody else before we take care of ourselves. And mental health works that way too. It's quite insidious. Well, I'll take care of everybody else and then I'll take care of myself. I'll have a hot bath. I'll go for a walk. I'll read a book. I'll journal. I'll have a cup of tea. I'll call a friend. All those things get put on our to-do list at the bottom. And quite often they don't get done. Well, I'm the same way. I was feeling completely overwhelmed. Before Rob's got sick, I was feeling anxious because of things like Day Spring Ministry and more work and more things to learn and a whole new way of thinking about parish ministry. And then as things were going on, knowing I was probably going to become the archdeacon for rural ministry in the diocese, and that was more work, exciting work, and work I love. These are all wonderful stresses. They're good things, but they were overwhelming me, and I wasn't paying attention to that. And then Rob got sick. And guess what? My world crashed in. I spent 8 days sitting in the hospital wondering, is he going to come home? And then I've spent the last 6 weeks wondering, what does this mean? What does that mean? Every time he moans, every time he coughs, every time he says he has a headache, every time he twinges, I think, oh my God, is he dying? Is he having a heart attack? It's overwhelming, the anxiety. So one of the things I did on my holidays was I called CIFMAP, which is the Canadian Forces Member Assistance Program. And it is an opportunity for members of the Canadian Forces and their dependents, which is what I am, to have access to a limited number of sessions with a psychologist. And it took me, I have been talking about calling CIFMAP since he was in the hospital, and it took me almost 2 weeks to do it. or 2 months to do it, because I was worried. I was worried about, am I just being weak? Am I not strong enough? Are they just going to think that, she should be able to handle it? It's not my problem, it's his. All of these things, until finally I realized, no, I am going to be crippled under the weight of this anxiety and worry if I don't do something about it. And so I called SIFMAP. I have had 2 sessions with my psychologist now, and it doesn't make everything go away. It doesn't mean that all my problems have disappeared. But by saying to someone else, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I'm scared about, and this is how I'm feeling overwhelmed, and you know what? I'm depressed, and I'm finding it hard to find joy in one of my favorite seasons of the year. And I'm having trouble thinking about the joy of Christmas when all of the work that will lay ahead of me because of 3 churches. I am acknowledging that just because I am a strong person and I have faith, I am also human. And I also have moments of anxiety, seasons of anxiety and depression and feeling overwhelmed. And there is nothing wrong with acknowledging that and getting help. That's why I wore my collar, because I want you to know that it's not just people who aren't in helping professions. I'm one of the people who tells people, who people come to tell them about their stories and how they're overwhelmed or they're depressed. I'm one of those people who refers them to psychologists or doctors or GPs or whoever to get help, with the help that I'm not able to provide. But I also need help. And I'm reaching out and starting to get it. I don't know what the end of my sessions will look like. I don't know what will happen, if I'll feel happy and relieved and all my anxieties will be gone and I will never be depressed again. Probably not. But I had the courage. I finally screwed up the courage to say, I can't do this on my own. I need help. And you know what? That's okay. Because it does take courage to say, I need help. And it's okay to be frustrated or depressed or scared or lonely. It's all part of the human condition. And we as a society need to acknowledge that and say it's okay. It is just as important to go and ask for help for your mental health as it would be if you fell off your skateboard and broke your arm, or if you got in a car accident and hurt your neck. No one would judge you for going to the emergency room and asking for help if your neck hurt after a car accident. So why would we judge somebody who went to a doctor and said, you know what, I was in a car accident and I got really injured physically and I think I'm really scared and I'm emotionally injured as well. There is no stigma that should be applied to that. There is no judgment when you have the courage and the ability and the strength to say, I need help. What should be judged is the people around us who discourage us from asking for help. We need to accept that if our society, our families, our workplaces, our homes are to continue in a way that functions well, then we need to be able to take care of ourselves. We need to grab that oxygen mask and put it on our faces so that we can take a deep breath and gather ourselves and then be able to help other people. So I encourage you, if you're struggling, reach out, look in your community, ask your general practitioner, your physician, your walk-in clinic, whoever might be out there. Go to the library and look up local resources for people and groups that might be able to help you in how you're feeling and how you're doing. It's not okay for you to not be okay. You need to be whole as well. So if you're struggling, as I have been struggling, or greater than or less than I was struggling, reach out and ask for help. Ask for prayer. I know how much prayers have helped me through the last 2 months. And I know that if it hadn't been for prayer, I would have been worse off than I was when I did ask for help. So please, don't think that your mental health is something that needs to be hidden. Please get some help. And if you don't have any worries about your mental health, keep an eye out for those who might. The symptoms, the symbols, the telltale signs are there if we pay attention. And sometimes all that the other person might need is someone to have a cup of tea with, to go to the bar and have a beer, to go and play golf, go for a walk. May just be companionship that would help somebody else's anxiety be relieved. So if you need help, ask. And if you don't need help, offer. Have a good day. God bless you. And I hope this is a peaceful day for you. I'll see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael.